everyone, Erica from Bravo Migration here, coming to talk to you about what the best visas to migrate in Australia in 2023 and 2024 would be. As some of you may know, the financial year in Australia starts on the 1st of July. So as I record this, is the beginning of October. We're entering on the second quarter of that financial year. So we have another 3 quarters of the financial year to go up until when it finishes on the 30th of June 2024. So every year, the federal government decides on a number of permanent visas that will be granted on that financial year. And that has a lot of impact in terms of what would be a good choice for you if you're thinking about moving to Australia. Normally, we talk about 2 types of pathways. We have what's called the general skilled migration visas. Those visas are points tested and require an invitation from Skill Select, so you're able to apply. Whereas there's another pathway, which is called the employer migration visas. And as the name says, you are required to first get a job in your field in Australia and then apply for one of these visas. With the change in government in May 2022, there was a lot of movement with the GSM, the General Skilled Migration Visas. The new government invited more than 54,000 people for the subclass 189 permanent skilled independent visa. And there were many invitations as well for the state-nominated and regional sponsored visas, subclass 190, and the temporary subclass 491. So for this financial year, after the government also published the total numbers for visas for this financial year, we were very hopeful the GSM points tested visas would really come to life and we would have another financial year where there would be a lot of movement in terms of those visas. And we were betting a lot on these visas being a good pathway for those seeking to migrate to Australia in this financial year. It's October and there's been no invitations yet for the subclass 189. So problem number 1. And when it came for the government, the federal government, to allocate places for the states and territories to nominate candidates for subclass 190 and 491, the states and all of us were really surprised with the low number of places allocated to the states. So we're thinking that there's not going to be a lot of movement with general skilled migration. There's also a lot of people on the pipeline that were invited last financial year, and those high numbers of places will most likely be used by granting visas to those people who applied last year. So what does that mean to you if you're watching us either in or outside of Australia? That means you really should be looking at the employer-sponsored visas. And we have always been huge advocates of those types of visas because we've always believed that if you find a place in the workforce, naturally there'll be a visa pathway for you. Plus, the skills shortage is still a reality. And when there's a huge gap in qualified people to work in skilled jobs, employers get desperate, and that creates urgency in terms of you finding a job and having an employer that will make that visa happen for you. That skill shortage has not eased yet. Just today, the Financial Review newspaper published an article talking about this being the biggest skill shortage in the last 60 years. And instead of getting better, we just saw 31% increase in shortages compared to the last financial year in 37 different sectors. I read that on the paper today and I was like, that's, why the government is focusing more on employer-sponsored visas and keeping the general skilled migration visas a bit quiet. If you look at the planned levels for the employer permanent visas, they are much higher than those GSM points tested visas anyway, now that the states and territories didn't get many places. And as I said, 189 visas, there's been no invitations. So there's no cap for temporary sponsored visas, such as the 482, which is a nationwide visa. You can get this visa regardless of where in the country your job offer is, and subclass 494, which is a regional sponsorship visa. Therefore, you cannot obtain that visa if your job offer is in Sydney, Brisbane, or Melbourne, only if it's in any other part of the country. So we've always been advocates for these visas. We believe that, it's the best way for people to get into a permanent visa. However, for a while as well, since 2018, it's not possible for everyone on a 482 to move on to a permanent employer visa, subclass 186. That will cease to be a problem by December 2023. The government has already announced that anyone, regardless if their occupation is in high demand or not, will be able to go from a 482 visa to a permanent employer nomination visa, subclass 186. Obviously, that person needs to meet all the requirements for that visa, and the employer also needs to agree to nominate them. But today, only occupations in super high demand can proceed to that permanent visa, and that's occupations on the medium and long-term skill shortage list, which is restrictive. From December onwards, we'll see all occupations having that pathway. Now, if you're watching us and you're not in Australia and you're thinking about coming to Australia, how do you find a job in your field here? It's impossible to find a job in Australia and a sponsorship offer if you're not here yet. Nothing is impossible, but it is more common for you to enter the country on a working holiday visa, on a student visa, find a job in your field, start working within the restrictions of your visa, and then get sponsored by that employer. Now, the working holiday visa or the work and holiday visa allow you to work for the same employer for 6 months maximum. If you want to continue after that, that employer needs to decide if they want to sponsor you or not. And student visas allow you to work 24 hours a week. So it's a great way to find a place in the workforce. But you need to have the right qualification, the minimum qualification for that occupation, and you need to have at least 2 years of full-time work experience in that occupation or something similar. If you don't have any work experience or if you don't have the right qualification, then you really need to consider coming in to the country on a student visa and acquiring that qualification, hopefully looking at a graduate visa afterwards where you can gain work experience and then and only then get sponsored. If you already have the right qualification and you have work experience, then your strategy, your time will be shorter, but you may have to study English if English is not your first language, because all these visas will require you to sit for an English test if English is not your first language. So that's when we look at what here at Bravo Migration we call your study to stay strategy. If you want to come in and you want to find a place in the workforce, the government's actually encouraging people to look into coming to Australia as students. And if you have the right skills, the labor market will absorb you and there will be options for you. Some people may choose to study English with that visa. Some people may study a post-graduation course or a vocational course. But here at Bravo, we work hand in hand with our students division, where they will look at what courses you can get into in terms of requirements, what courses you could afford, and student visa requirements. And together with our registered migration agents and solicitor, who will then have a consultation with you and define and design that pathway, what you should be studying, what visa will you get after you study, can you go straight into a sponsorship visa, or do you need to get more work experience, and so on. So if you would like to discuss that study to stay pathway, all you need to do is click on the link in this video if you're watching us on YouTube, and fill a very quick form, and one of our consultants will be in touch with you. If you're watching this in our Instagram page, I don't know, in our website, just click on the link on our Instagram bio, and there's a form there for you as well. If you already speak English, if you already have a lot of work experience, you may want to skip that study stage and come to Australia directly, then we recommend getting a consultation. Now, we are not a recruitment agency. We cannot find you work. As I said, it's not impossible to find work being outside of Australia, but it will be harder than if you're already here on a temporary visa with work rights. What are the temporary visas with work rights? Working holiday visa, student visa. Working holiday visa is not for everyone, unfortunately. Only a few countries have an agreement with Australia where they can apply for this visa, and the maximum age, depending on where you're from, is either 35 or even 30 in some cases. So not for everyone. But again, get in touch with us. You can either have a student consultation, look at the study to stay pathway, or you can talk directly with one of our migration agents and book one of our visa action plan consultations. Regardless, I hope this has been useful, and I hope to see you in Australia soon. If you're not here already, if you're here already, we hope that we can help you become a permanent resident, as we have helped so many people during 15 years, and who knows, you're maybe next. Thank you for watching. Bye.